Thank you, Professor Azad, Professor Shukla, and Ganga. It's very nice to begin with Mehul's talk, which gives such a huge context of a very large center in ophthalmic trauma, where we get an idea of what kind of problems we are facing. So I'm grateful to APOT Scientific Committee for having given me this opportunity to speak on the trends in ophthalmic trauma. We all know the global scenario and how important eye injuries are, but the figures speak for themselves. 55 million eye injuries causing restriction for more than a day. 750,000 cases requiring hospitalization, and 200,000 with open globe injuries in the globe every year. So this is a huge figure, 1.6 million ocular trauma-related blindness globally, and 2.3 million with bilateral low vision. So these are huge figures, and it just awakens us to the need of more focused effort in this field. To add to this is the WHO global data, where it was shown that trauma has not been even taken as a cause for visual impairment, and it is clubbed with the miscellaneous. And therefore, WHO mentions in its own document that injuries have been low in priority for policymakers. But this needs to be corrected. So, more particularly focusing on what we know about ocular trauma in India, we're going to look at four things. How common is trauma here from whatever figures we can get? What is the pattern of this trauma? Where does the trauma occur? Because that will be important for deriving our strategy for managing and tackling it, what we need to do. So let's look at what we know. There are two major studies. One is the Andhra Pradesh Eye Disease Study and the Arvind Comprehensive Eye Survey, where they talk about injuries being present in 7.5% of population in this survey of South India, and unilateral blindness to trauma in 0.6%, which is huge figure. Then Arvind study also says that lifetime prevalence of ocular trauma. Somebody has had an ocular trauma of significance at some point in his time, almost 1 in every 20 persons. More figures. A survey by Watts et al., 2.5% prevalence in urban population, almost 1/10 of them lose vision. And the National Statistical Organization related data, both for urban and rural, but the figures are alarmingly significant, almost 5% here as well. Looking at the pattern of ocular trauma or ophthalmic trauma, as Ganga corrected me, the most important things are that young people are involved, more than 50% being 25 years of age. Males, as we all know from all figures, involved almost 3.5 times more than others. And road accidents constituting more than 1/3, sports and recreation another 1/3, then occupation. Now this is the figure from this tertiary hospital. And in a hospital-based data, open globe injuries are almost 3/4. Another figures about the pediatric ocular trauma, here again male-female preponderance. Again, the causes here change to some of the sports, including bow and arrows in our country, wooden stick injuries, which include gulli danda, fist and fingernail, and then again the preponderance of open globe injuries in the data from the hospitals. Now, where is the trauma occurring and what can we do about that? We have the workplace-related trauma, domestic ocular trauma, road traffic trauma, sports and leisure-related, and combat-related. So what about the workplace-related trauma? Again, no national data available, no reporting system exists, but we know that it is most common in the young adults, and that is why the preponderance in young people. And it constituted 56% of the eye injuries in Andhra Pradesh study. And in urban study, 46.9% were agricultural labor related. So we know that workplace related is possibly the most important one, and also occurs in construction sector and the manufacturing sector. So domestic trauma, again, we have very little data because there's no organized sector here involved, and it is second only to work-related trauma. Road traffic injuries are becoming more and more important because of the lack of traffic discipline that we have in our country, and this is something that can be tackled by a more emphasis on discipline. Sports and leisure related, this is again an area where education can work a lot, because there is hardly any use of eye protective devices except organized sports like cricket and hockey. And we have a huge plethora of injuries due to firecrackers, tir kaman, gulli danda, where again we can do a lot by education, by legislative action. Last thing, what do we need to do once we know that whatever little we know, there is a need for, of course, a lot more in collecting the data. That is the one single most important thing, and I think IGATES and all these, the recent effort at collecting the data regarding firecracker injuries are all great initiatives by Asia Pacific Ocular Trauma Society, and they would help us a lot. So there are registries which exist for American Society, International Society of Ocular Trauma, OTSI, and APOTS initiative. But this is one area where we need to be working very hard. Ocular Trauma Society had started this initiative. We've been working on this. Let's hope it can take off in a big way. So the data suggests that 90% of all eye injuries are preventable. And for us, the policy formulation has only just begun in 2011. And occupational health policy was one of the components of the national health policy which started in this year. So this is an area which will need to grow, but where our initiative and our advocacy will be very important in gaining anything. We also need to work hard at public education, special groups for workmen, for leisure-related, sports-related, and for combat-related as well can work very well. Legislative steps are essential. Here again, inputs from society like Asia Pacific and the national societies will be very important. And in industries and armed forces, these need to be regulated rather well. And we even lack disability definitions. Recently, there have been some work on this and compensation law regulations which we need to work on. So targeted education for all these groups will be very important, which we have a role to play in. There has been no visible campaign to educate public so far which is of any significance, and that really is where we all will have to come in with advocacy, both at public level and at government level. We need to sensitize governments. We need to help create publicity materials so that we are able to achieve what we want to. And also, there are a lot of things that we can do. We need to recognize it as a distinct subspecialty, need to work to create curricula, to develop the subspecialties in individual hospitals so that it can be taken up by the regulatory bodies. Education during residency training needs to improve. Subspecialty fellowship programs will follow once this is done. And better interspecialty coordination and management is a huge area, and for that an adequate infrastructure will need to exist. And this infrastructure has to be at the primary management level and at the secondary and tertiary level. So this is again a huge area where we have a lot to do, and there certainly are miles and miles to go for us. We are just beginning the effort. Let's do it with all our might so that we achieve something. And like Mehul, I would like you to invite to the World Congress in December 14 and 15 at the Le Méridien in New Delhi. Look forward to all of you being there. This will be one area where I thought APOTS and OTSI will get together and will become a huge platform for us to take things forward. Thank you very much. Thank you again for the